Hello and welcome to this special rugby show here on France 24. Over the next 12 minutes, I'll be joined by some special guests in studio to discuss the first 3 days of the 2023 Rugby World Cup. We'll also be hearing from our reporter Jean-Emile Jamin, who is in Marseille for South Africa's game against Scotland earlier today. Well, in the last few minutes, Wales opened up their World Cup campaign with a thrilling 32-26 win over Fiji in Bordeaux. Earlier today, Chile played their first ever World Cup game, losing 42-12 to Japan. And there was a massive clash in Marseille as South Africa took on Scotland. The reigning champions were too good for the Scots in the end, putting in a strong second half display to ease home 18 points to 3. Our reporter Jean-Emile Jamin was at the ground. He sent us this report.
World champions South Africa, holders from 2019, starting as they mean to go on in this tournament, in this Pool B clash against Scotland. 18-3 victory, a very tight encounter. Up until half-time, it was just 6-3 for South Africa. Manny Lubbock with 2 penalty kicks, and Finn Russell, Scotland's captain, restricted to the only points of the Scotland game. After the half-time whistle, South Africa came charging out of the blocks. Peter Steph du Toit, 2019 World Player of the Year, crashing over for the box. And then Kurtley Oranse collecting a delicious crossfield kick from fly half Manny Lubbock to make sure of the points for the Springboks. They go marching on their next game against Romania, while Scotland have to play Tonga. Of course, the crunch clash with Ireland on the horizon in Pool B.
Well, I'm delighted to say that in order to discuss the South African victory as well as the rest of the weekend's action, I'm joined on set now by Laurent Bellet, a rugby specialist and former deputy head of sports at France Télévisions, as well as rugby journalist Ian Borthwick. Ian, I'll cross to you first. What did you make of that performance from South Africa? Do they look like a side ready to defend their crown, in your opinion?
I think they do. They definitely are on track to defend their title. I thought they might be playing a one-dimensional sort of game, the sort of game they played against the All Blacks in Twickenham a few weeks ago, but they've shown that they've got a lot of variety in their play, and it's going to be a very, very good team that'll stop the Springboks at this World Cup. One
thing that was maybe noticeable was there was quite a few missed penalties. Obviously, Pollard is missing through injury. A potential weakness for the Springboks, or no?
Potential weakness. They did miss a number. Yeah, I think maybe 12 points from failed kicks, but they still managed to squeeze Scotland out. And Scotland really didn't exist. I thought Scotland had a chance if they had been able to play a game at pace to put the South Africans off their game, but the South Africans were far too strong. And as I say, I can't see anybody else stopping them at this time.
Laurent, I'll bring you in. Obviously, Ian mentioned Scotland there. They did their best to disrupt the Springboks game plan, seemed to sort of work in the first half, kept them to only 6 points. They kind of got blown away in the second half. What did you make of Scotland? Because they are seen as underdogs, obviously in a group with Ireland and South Africa. What did you make of them today? Slightly disappointing performance?
Yes, a little bit, because if Scots want to win against the Boks, they have to be perfect, and I think they were not so good this afternoon. Not so good on the line out. They make some mistake. They try to gain advantage lane on the middle, and it was closed, and they haven't enough power to play that kind of rugby. And now the Boks, they are a lot of confidence, and now they are two easy game, and it will be the clash for the first place against Ireland. So it will be tough for the Scots now, because Ireland, and is a really good team.
Yeah, obviously, look, Ireland, number one ranked side in the world, and to beat Ireland, which you'll have to do to get out of the group, be a huge challenge. Do Scotland still have hope in this? Can they beat Ireland, or is their tournament not as good as over, but it's looking like an uphill battle, surely, for the Scots?
Yes, never underestimate Scots. It's always possible. They have the talent. They have Finn Russell. Maybe today I was talking with Ian before the show, and maybe he was a little bit injured this afternoon. But Scots against Ireland, it will be possible, but it will be really difficult, because there is a problem of confidence, because Boks are very confident, and Irish will be confident against the Scots.
To round out that pool, I just want to quickly touch on Ireland. Obviously, look, they hammered Romania, yes, as they were expected to. Do we learn anything from that? Do Ireland still need to sharpen up in certain areas, or was it just business as usual for them?
I think, business as usual is a way of putting it, but I think that they show that they're a very well-drilled team. and they've got very few weaknesses. They're very precise in everything they do, as they have been for the last few years. And I think the score is just a fair indication of the game, although Romania did put up a bit of a battle at times. But Ireland looked very sharp, and I thought again that Scotland might have a chance of beating them in this pool, but it might turn out that maybe Ireland will beat South Africa, and then there'll be some sort of three-way tie at the end of this pool, because Scotland can play better than that. They've shown it recently against France, but they need to get their first phase, their set phase ball and clean possession for their backs. And I think that's a point we've take out from the whole weekend. We saw against Fiji. If you're not solid on your scrum, if your line out is not functioning 100%, you're going to struggle against teams which are considered better. But in a game like Fiji against Wales, many people thought that Fiji would win that easily, but they weren't able to count on their first phase possession at any time. Well, they were at some stages, but often it let them down.
It's certainly fair to say that Pool B is the group of death. Let's move on to Pool D, and England started their World Cup campaign in the best possible manner. They beat Argentina 27-10 in Marseille. England will, of course, be delighted with that victory. But Laurent, I'll go to you. Let's not sugarcoat this. Argentina were pretty awful last night. What happened?
What happened? I think the English were very good, because the game plan was very simple, but they do it with at perfection. George Ford made a great game. He scored the 27 points, and they put a lot of pressure, defensive pressure on the Argentinian, and the second ball were always for the English. The guys like Ben Earls was tremendous. Lowe's, Itoje, they played a really good game, and we know they are a good player. They have some trouble to be a team before the World Cup, but now they have the golden way until the quarterfinal.
And Ian, I just want to ask you, because there's been so much pessimism around this England side recently, and probably deservedly so. They lost to Fiji for the first time in their history, lost to Argentina last November. They've been on a really poor run of form. Does this change from now? Did that performance really change their hopes? I mean, it was really impressive last night, led by George Ford, of course.
I think it does, and I think maybe it was that the red card so early in the game. Maybe that galvanised them somehow and brought them back to a game which is playing a much more pragmatic, simple game. It's World Cup rugby. You've just got to get your points when you can. And like we've seen many times in the past in the World Cup, the drop goal has become a major weapon, and they used it to great effect. George Ford kicking 3 of them. And that hasn't happened for a few years in a World Cup. But I think it just showed that put the acid on them when they got that red card, and they came back to a very simple form of rugby. And they were helped, I must say, by Argentina, who were, I thought very disappointing, very unstructured and ill-disciplined.
And like France, England, they don't give nothing to the opponent, no gift. And when you don't give point to the opponent, it's difficult. The Argentinians, they just score a try, but the game was over. Before, they play hard, and they don't give nothing to the opponent.
We'll have to move on from that. And look, of course, having a Kiwi and a Frenchman in the studio, I have to talk about Friday night's game. Of course, Les Bleus defeated the All Blacks 27 points to 13 here in Paris. Ian, I'll come to you first. Yep. What's the reaction been like to this defeat, specifically maybe in the Kiwi media? Is there genuine concern for this side going forward? Do they see it as a blip? Do they still believe they can win this World Cup?
A lot of people believe they can still win it. It's not impossible. It was a poor performance by New Zealand in the fact that they did dominate for a lot of the game, a lot of the first half, and they had the French on the rack, and they just didn't hammer home the advantage. And then when they kind of I thought if you'd asked somebody at the maybe 35th minute and then the 45th minute who was going to win, you would have said New Zealand because they were playing well and they had the French really unsettled. But then they let France back into the game, and France showed the maturity they've got and the collective composure that they have built over the past few years, plus a bit of, I've got to say it, flair to score a couple of those tries. And New Zealand, who were trying to play a fast-paced, high-risk game, just didn't have the skill levels and didn't have the composure to take it through.
Let me bring Laurent in for the French perspective. It feels so different from 2007. There was so much optimism then. They lost that opening game to Argentina. What does winning that opening game against an All Black side, the most successful side in rugby history, what does that do to the French confidence?
The French, they don't give nothing, just 4 penalties. For all the games, and like Ian say, the Kiwis, they plays a lot with the ball in the first half, just 8 points scoring, and they score a try at the beginning of the second half, and then it's over. It's finished because the French, they don't give nothing to the opponent. That's what we change a lot. No gift for the on the field. Gift maybe after for the third half, but during the game we don't give nothing, and we have some tremendous players to. We were very good, for example, on the opponent there. Thomas Ramos was really good. He was really good as a kicker, and we dominate the Kiwi in the air, and it's not always the same thing.
Yeah. Look, it was an absolutely fabulous performance by France, and they'll certainly be hoping to go all the way. I mean, we're already out of time. Gentlemen, I have to thank you so much. Ian, thank you very much. Laurent, thank you very much. And I didn't even bring up the fact that you had predicted the All Blacks to win on Friday when you were in studio. I didn't want to mention that, but you did technically get that one wrong. But thank you both to you so much for joining us. And just a reminder to viewers that we will have a special rugby show on France 24 every Sunday at 11:10 Paris time, where we'll be discussing everything to do with the Rugby World Cup. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more news just a few minutes' time.